My name is Eliana Torres. I'm 28 years old, and I own a small wooden furniture company in San Francisco now. But a year ago, I was just a sales rep in Seattle, making $70,000 a year, living inside a loop that never ended. Wake up, work, come home, repeat. My apartment was cramped, beige, and half empty, like I'd been saving space for a life that hadn't started yet. The couch cushions were permanently sunken from exhaustion. I'd stare at the ceiling some nights and think, is this it? Is this the whole story? The only bright spot in my world was my grandmother, Brenda. She had this refined way of speaking, like every sentence mattered. And even when I was a child spilling juice on her carpet, she never snapped. She'd just sigh, smile, and say, "We clean it together." My boyfriend, Mateo Reyes, used to tease me gently about it. "You talk about her like she's a saint," he'd say. "She kind of is," I'd answer, and I meant it. So when Brenda's 80th birthday came around, I saved up for a gift that felt worthy of her. A navy cashmere scarf, almost $500, premium Scottish fabric, soft enough to feel like a promise. I hadn't been home for Christmas 2023. I'd promised friends I'd join them on a Colorado trip planned months in advance, and I kept my word. I didn't know that decision would cost me more than distance. 2 days before Grandma's birthday, I came home from work drained down to the bone. I tossed my keys onto the counter, collapsed onto the sofa, and my phone lit up with my mom's name. "Helen," I answered automatically, already bracing for the usual. A favor, a request, a guilt-wrapped obligation. But her voice was sweet, too sweet. "Eliana, honey, how's work? Are you eating enough?" We danced through small talk for maybe 30 seconds before her tone shifted into something carefully serious. "2 days from now is Grandma's birthday," she said, but she changed her plans. She won't be having the party anymore. Has she told you? I sat up. My stomach tightened, like it recognized danger before my brain did. "Canceled?" I repeated. "She invited me last week." Mom sighed. An actress sigh, like she'd practiced it. "There's a flu outbreak in San Francisco right now. She's worried people might get sick." "A flu outbreak?" I asked, immediately anxious. "Are you and Dad and Grandma okay?" "We're fine," Mom said quickly. "It's mild, but you know Grandma's older. She's just being cautious." The conversation ended smoothly. Too smoothly. A couple hours later, around 8 o'clock p.m., I got 2 texts almost at the same time. From my dad, Stephen. "Birthday party at Grandma's is canceled. Flu outbreak. She's worried it might spread." From my older brother, Derek. "Birthday party at Grandma's is canceled. Flu outbreak. She's worried it might spread." Identical, like copy and paste. I remember smiling at the time, thinking it was considerate. Now that memory makes my skin crawl. I replied, "Thanks, Mom already told me." And I stared at the screen, debating whether to call Grandma directly. I didn't. I'd already booked the flight. Already requested 3 days off work. I told myself, even if the party is canceled, I'll still see her. Give her the scarf. Sit with her privately. Make up for missing Christmas. I didn't know I was walking into a trap. On Grandma's birthday, my taxi dropped me off around 5 o'clock p.m. in front of her house. The air smelled like coastal cold and cut grass. I stepped out, gift bag in hand, and froze. There were nearly 10 cars parked outside her gate. Through the windows, I heard music, laughter, voices overlapping, warm light spilling out like a secret. My chest tightened. That quiet unease from 2 days ago returned, sharper now, like it had claws. I walked to the gate, unlocked. Of course it was unlocked. This was Grandma's house. Her door was always open to family. The moment I stepped inside, my cousin Olivia shrieked so loud it made me flinch. "Oh my God, Eliana's here!" The reactions weren't what you'd expect. People stood. Faces appeared at windows. But the expressions weren't joyful. They were startled, like I wasn't supposed to be there. Before I could process that, my parents rushed toward me faster than I'd ever seen them move. My mother grabbed my hand. Her grip was too tight, too urgent. "Eliana!" she roared, overly loud, like she wanted the entire neighborhood to hear. "Everyone's missed you so much!" My mom never roared. She barely raised her voice in normal life. This wasn't emotion. It was performance. Then she leaned close and whispered through clenched teeth, "I'm sorry. Grandma changed her mind. She decided to have the party after all. Please don't be mad." My dad slid in immediately, voice soft but frantic. "We got so caught up preparing we forgot to tell you. Lucky you came." Lucky. That word hit my ears wrong. I nodded, because what else could I do? My heartbeat was loud in my head, but I followed them inside. And there she was, Grandma Brenda, standing in the doorway as if she'd been waiting. Her smile was warm, real. She hugged me and said, "You're here. I'm so happy. I thought you wouldn't be able to make it. My throat tightened. That was the grandmother I knew. But before I could answer, my mother cut in again, smooth as a blade. Eliana was busy, Mom said, but she rearranged her schedule to be here. Grandma didn't question it. She just patted my head like I was 10 years old again. I handed her the scarf. When she opened the box, her face lit up in genuine delight. She ran her fingers over the fabric and smiled so brightly it made my eyes sting. Then she put it on immediately and wore it for the rest of the party. That scarf should have been the moment I remembered forever. Instead, it became the last soft thing before everything turned sharp. In the dining room, the table was full, nearly 20 people. Pasta from an Italian restaurant, fresh bread, salads, and a 3-tier cake that looked too perfect to cut. For a few minutes, I almost relaxed. Uncle Mike handed me wine, filled my plate, smelled like he always did. Kind, uncomplicated. Olivia asked me about Seattle. People laughed. But my parents stayed glued to my sides like bodyguards. My mom kept steering the conversation away from anything personal. My dad kept watching me like he was monitoring damage control. When I sat down, my parents asked Derek to move so I could take his seat. Derek hesitated, his mouth tightened, but he stood and moved to a nearby table, not hiding his annoyance. Mom smiled at me. Sit close, I've missed you. Back then, I almost believed it. Now I know the truth. She didn't want me close because she loved me. She wanted me close because she needed control. Around 8 p.m., the music lowered. The room quieted, everyone turning toward Grandma for that familiar family moment where she checked in on each of us, asked about our lives, told stories, made us feel seen. She turned to Olivia first. Her tone was gentle. Olivia, what did you do with my money? Olivia set her fork down quickly, cheeks pink. I haven't used it. It's still in savings. Good, Grandma said, satisfied. You know how to save. I blinked. Her money? Then Grandma turned to Derek. And what about you, Derek? Derek smiled like a man auditioning for praise. I put it into stocks. I'm up 20%. Well done, Grandma nodded. You know how to invest. My stomach sank. They'd both been given money, and I hadn't known. A small, childish sadness crept into me, hot and embarrassing. Not jealousy, just the sting of being the one left out, the one far away, the one who didn't matter enough to mention. Then Grandma turned to me. Her eyes were still gentle. Eliana, she said, what did you do with the $350,000 I gave you? The room went silent in a way that felt physical. I froze with my fork halfway to my mouth. $350,000. My mind tried to reject it, like it was a language I didn't understand. She must be mistaken. Maybe she meant someone else. Maybe she forgot. I opened my mouth, and under the table, my mother's hand clamped down on mine so hard it hurt. Her skin was sweaty. Her fingers shook. Her smile stayed on her face, but her eyes were panicked. And before I could speak, she answered for me. Too fast. Too smooth. Grandma, Mom said brightly, Eliana hasn't used the money yet. My blood went cold. Because in that moment, the truth wasn't just possible. It was confirmed. My mother knew exactly what Grandma was talking about, and I didn't. Grandma's head snapped toward my mom, her voice suddenly sharp, nothing like the warm woman who patted my hair. I'm asking Eliana, she said, not you. My mother's smile faltered. Grandma looked at me now, eyes demanding. Eliana, she said, slow and firm, answer me. What did you do with that money? I yanked my hand out of my mother's grip, stood up, and my voice came out steadier than I felt. What $350,000, I said. Grandma, I've never even known about that money. It was like the oxygen left the room. Grandma stared at me, shocked. Then her gaze slid to my parents, and something in her expression hardened into something I'd never seen. Fury. Stephen, she said, voice rising, what did you do with Eliana's money? My father's face drained of color. My mother covered her mouth, shoulders shaking. No one answered. Grandma turned toward Uncle Mike like a general issuing an order. Mike, she roared, call the police. Uncle Mike stared. Brenda, you're not serious. Yes, Grandma snapped, right now. The word police hit my parents like a gunshot. They shot up, rushed to Grandma, and dropped to their knees. Mom, please, my father begged, tears already spilling. We'll return it. My mother sobbed. We were wrong, please. And Grandma, my gentle grandmother, looked down at them like they were strangers. It's too late, she said, voice like stone. The one thing I hate most is a thief. I stood there trembling, scarf still around her neck like a dark ribbon of truth. And as my father tried to choke out, I didn't steal it, I borrowed it, I realized something horrifying. They weren't just desperate. They still thought they were entitled. The room spun. My family was collapsing in front of me. And somewhere in the distance, I could already hear the faint approach of consequences. Sirens, maybe, or maybe just the sound of the life I thought I had. Shattering. The police arrived about 20 minutes later, but it felt like time had stopped long before that. Everyone stayed in the dining room, frozen in different versions of panic. Some people wouldn't look at my parents. Others stared like they were watching something they never believed could happen in our family. My cousin Olivia sat rigid, her fork untouched, eyes glossy with shock. Uncle Mike kept pacing, jaw clenched so tight the tendons in his neck bulged. And Grandma Brenda, she didn't cry. That was what scared me the most. She sat there with her navy scarf wrapped around her shoulders, hands folded in her lap, face hard as marble. It was like she had stepped out of the role the family wrote for her, sweet, forgiving, patient, and become someone I didn't recognize. When the officers stepped through the doorway, my mother let out a sound that was half sob, half gasp, as if the presence of law made the lie official. One officer, a woman with a calm face and a voice that didn't bend to emotion, asked what happened. Grandma told her, concise and brutal. I gave my granddaughter money. Her parents stole it. My father flinched at the word stole like it was a slap. He tried to speak, tried to reshape the story into something softer, something forgivable. We borrowed it. Grandma cut him off without even turning her head. I said what I said. The officers asked us to come to the station to provide statements. I walked out of that house with my gift bag crumpled in my fist, the air cold against my skin, my legs moving as if someone else was controlling them. In the driveway, my father's knees buckled again. He grabbed my wrist. Eliana, sweetheart, please, let's talk. We can fix this. I stared down at his hand on me and felt something crack inside my chest. It wasn't rage. It was grief. Because I realized, truly realized, that the man gripping my arm didn't see me as a person he wronged. He saw me as a problem he needed to manage. I pulled my arm away. I don't even know what you did, I said, but I'm going to. His eyes flickered, and for a second, I saw something ugly behind the tears. Not guilt, fear of losing. At the station, the lights were too bright and the chairs were too hard, and every sound echoed like it was happening inside my skull. They separated us. One officer sat with me in a small room and asked me to explain everything from the beginning. When I first heard the party was canceled, what I knew about the money, what my grandmother had said. I answered, but my voice didn't feel like mine. It sounded distant, like it belonged to some woman watching her life from outside her body. When I finished, the officer nodded slowly. Then she left, and I sat there alone, staring at my hands, thinking about the last time my mom had held them like that. When I was 8 and scared of the dentist. When I was 12 and cried over my first heartbreak. When I was 17 and she hugged me goodbye as I left for college, whispering, "No matter what, I'm your mom." I wondered when that promise had become a weapon. It was almost an hour later when they brought my grandmother in to see me. She looked smaller in the fluorescent light, but her posture was still straight, eyes still sharp. She sat down across from me, and for a moment the anger slipped, just a little. Her voice softened. "Eliana, are you telling me the truth?" My throat burned. "Yes," I whispered. "Grandma, I swear, I never got anything. I didn't even know." Her face tightened like she was holding something back. Pain, maybe. Or betrayal so deep it had nowhere to go. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out something folded neatly. A paper. A receipt. She laid it on the table like evidence in a trial. "I kept it," she said quietly, "because I was proud. Because I thought I was helping you build your future." I leaned forward. The numbers swam for a second because my eyes filled with tears. $350,000. Transferred. Dated Christmas 2023. My stomach turned. This went to me?" I asked. "It was supposed to," she said. Then her gaze sharpened again. But it didn't. Not long after, the officer returned with a folder and that calm, unforgiving voice. "Ms. Torres, we've spoken to your parents and your brother. We're going to document statements, but you need to understand what we've uncovered." My heart pounded so hard it felt like it would bruise my ribs. The officer opened the folder, and the truth came out like a slow execution. During Christmas 2023, Grandma Brenda had sold part of her farm, land that had been in our family for generations, to give money to her grandchildren so we could build our careers and not struggle the way she did. 3 grandchildren, Olivia, Derek, and me. Each of us was meant to receive the same amount, $350,000. I felt sick because I remembered that Christmas, not the family part. I wasn't there. I remembered laughing with friends in Colorado, thinking I was making a normal adult choice. keeping a promise. I hadn't known my absence was being used as an opening. Grandma had said she would send my money later since I wasn't present. But my parents stopped her. They gave her my bank account information. Or rather, they gave her an account in my name that they still had access to. 2 years earlier, my mom had told me she had a financial emergency. Her account was having technical issues, she said, just for a few days. I was her daughter. I trusted her. I gave her my account details. I never thought to change passwords afterward. Never thought to revoke access. Because who thinks their mother will steal from them? My stomach twisted into knots. I could hear the officer, but it sounded like she was underwater. My parents used that old account, the one they could touch without my knowing, so Grandma would believe she was sending money to me. Grandma did the transfer quickly. She trusted them. She trusted the family. Then she forgot to follow up. She admitted it, voice trembling with shame. I'm getting older, she told the officer. Some details, I forget. I reached for her hand across the table. She squeezed my fingers so hard it hurt, like she needed to feel something real. Then came the part that destroyed what little hope I still had. After my parents received the $350,000, they gave it to Derek. All of it. Not a portion, not a loan. All of it. Because Derek had heard about a stock, some rumor, some guaranteed rise, some fantasy, whispered by people who profit when others gamble. Derek had always wanted fast success. He didn't want the slow grind I lived with in Seattle. He wanted a shortcut. And my parents, they bet my future on his greed. The stock collapsed. Catastrophically. My $350,000 became worth roughly $35,000, 10%. My mouth went dry. I couldn't breathe for a moment. It wasn't just the money. It was the way it happened. The planning, the lies, the performance. The fact they were comfortable stealing from me because they assumed I'd never find out. Because I'd been away, invisible. My chest tightened as if someone had wrapped wire around my ribs. And I thought of my mother's hand squeezing mine under the table at dinner. That wasn't fear for me. That was fear for herself. After the formal statements, we were ushered into a hallway while paperwork was processed. My parents sat across the hall, faces ruined by crying, my father's shoulders slumped like a man pretending to be broken. Derek stood near the wall, pale and stiff, staring at the floor like the ground might open and swallow him. Grandma didn't look at any of them. I did. And that was my mistake, because my mother caught my eyes and mouthed something desperately. Please. I almost let my heart soften. Then my dad stood suddenly and rushed toward me. Eliana, he said, voice cracking. We didn't mean to hurt you. You know we love you. We were going to pay it back before you ever found out. Before I ever found out. Like the theft would be fine as long as it stayed hidden. I stared at him and my voice came out quiet. You were going to pay it back with what? I asked. With magic? With a miracle? Or with another lie? His face tightened. Then Derek finally spoke, voice thin. It was supposed to go up, he said. It was supposed to triple. I stepped toward him. You thought, I repeated. You thought with my life. His eyes flickered with anger, just for a split second, and that flash told me everything. This wasn't remorse. This was resentment that he'd been caught. When the officers finished, Grandma asked me to walk with her outside. The night air hit my face like a slap. My hands were shaking, and I didn't even realize it until I tried to put my phone in my pocket and missed. Grandma held out her hand. Eliana, she said, voice low, show me. What? I asked, confused. The messages, she said. The ones you mentioned, about the party. My heart sank again. I pulled out my phone and opened the texts from Dad and Derek. Identical, word for word. Flu outbreak. Party canceled. Grandma read them. Once. Twice. Then her face drained of color so fast it scared me. Her hands began to tremble. Not the gentle tremble of age. The violent shake of someone realizing the people she loved had been running a con in her own home. She inhaled sharply, like she'd been punched in the chest. Then she turned toward my parents and Derek, who had stepped outside behind us, still begging with their eyes. Her voice, when it came, was colder than the night. From this moment on, she said, we are no longer family. My mother let out a wail that didn't sound human. My father dropped to his knees again, grabbing at the air like he could catch those words before they landed. Derek froze, lips parted, eyes wide. And Grandma didn't stop there. I will revise my will, she continued. You are removed from the inheritance. That sentence hit them like a death sentence. My father collapsed fully onto the pavement, sobbing. My mother's body shook so hard she could barely stand. Derek's eyes filled, and for 1 second I thought he was finally going to say something real. But he didn't. He just looked at me like I had done this to him. On the drive home, Grandma sat in the passenger seat, silent. Her scarf was still around her neck, the gift I had brought to honor her. now wrapped around the woman who had just declared war on her own blood. My phone buzzed once. A text from Mateo. "I'm here. Call me when you can. I love you." That message almost broke me, because it reminded me what love is supposed to feel like. Not control, not manipulation. Not theft with a smile. When we pulled into Grandma's driveway, she finally spoke. "Eliana," she said, voice tired but unwavering, "I need you to take more days off." "How many?" I asked, throat tight. "4," she said, "at least." I swallowed hard. I didn't ask why, because the look in her eyes told me everything. She wasn't just changing paperwork. She was changing the entire future of this family. And whatever she was about to do next, it was going to finish what tonight started. The next morning, I woke up on Grandma Brenda's couch with the taste of metal still sitting at the back of my throat. Sleep hadn't come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mother's hand squeezing mine under the table, tight, desperate, not loving. I heard my father saying we were going to pay it back like that made everything okay. I saw Derek's face when the word inheritance left Grandma's mouth. Shock first, then calculation. That look haunted me more than the shouting. Grandma was already awake when I walked into the kitchen. She stood by the window, coffee untouched, staring out at the quiet street like she was watching a world she no longer recognized. "Did you sleep?" she asked without turning around. "A little," I lied. She nodded, accepting the lie with grace I didn't deserve. At precisely 10 o'clock a.m., the doorbell rang. Grandma didn't flinch. "That'll be the lawyer," she said. Attorney Laura Whitman stepped into the living room carrying a leather briefcase and an expression that had learned not to react to emotional chaos. She was in her 50s, hair pulled back, posture sharp, a woman who had watched families destroy each other over money and walked away with clean hands. Behind her, my parents entered slowly, like defendants approaching a courtroom. My father's eyes were swollen. My mother looked hollow, like something essential had been scraped out of her overnight. Derek followed a few steps behind, shoulders hunched, avoiding everyone's gaze. Uncle Mike and Aunt Linda arrived last with Olivia. They looked furious, but controlled. Loyal in a way my parents never were. We all sat. The living room, that once held birthday cake and laughter, now felt like a crime scene. Attorney Laura opened her briefcase and placed several documents neatly on the coffee table. "Mrs. Brenda Torres," she began, voice professional, "you asked me to formally announce your decision and oversee its legal execution." Grandma nodded once. Laura continued, "Effective immediately. Your existing will is to be amended." My father's breathing grew shallow. His hands trembled in his lap. "The inheritance previously designated to Stephen Torres, Helen Torres, and Derek Torres will be revoked." My mother let out a choked sound. "These shares will be transferred in full to Eliana Torres." Every head turned toward me. My chest tightened, not with triumph, with weight. Derek shot up from his chair. "This is insane," he said hoarsely. "Grandma, you can't be serious." Grandma didn't look at him. "You gambled with what was never yours," she said calmly. "You don't get to tell me what I can do." Attorney Laura went on, unfazed. "Uncle Michael Torres and his immediate family will retain their original inheritance allocation." Uncle Mike nodded grimly. Then Laura delivered the part that made the room go silent again. "In addition, Mrs. Torres has instructed me to issue a formal repayment demand." She slid a document across the table toward my parents. "You have 30 days to return the full $350,000 taken from Eliana, plus applicable interest." My father stood abruptly. "30 days?" he shouted. "That's impossible." "Then you shouldn't have stolen it," Uncle Mike snapped. My mother fell to her knees again, sobbing openly. "Mom, please," she begged. "We raised her. We made mistakes, but we're still family." Grandma finally turned to her. Her eyes were dry. "I raised you too," she said, "and you still chose to steal." My father clenched his fists. "She's my daughter," he said sharply. "I had the right to decide what was best for her." The room erupted. "You had no right," Uncle Mike roared. "That money wasn't yours," Olivia added, voice shaking with anger. I stood up before I realized I was moving. "Don't," I said quietly. Everyone froze. I looked at my father. "You don't get to use me as your justification," I said. "Not anymore." Attorney Laura cleared her throat. "If repayment is not made within 30 days, she said, legal action will proceed without further notice." The word legal crushed what little hope my parents had left. My mother collapsed onto the couch. Derek sat down slowly, face pale, hands gripping his hair. After the meeting, Uncle Mike and his family left first. Olivia hugged me tightly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I wish you'd known." "So do I said. When the door closed behind them, my parents remained seated, stunned. My father looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. "You're really going to let this happen," he said. I swallowed. I didn't start it, I replied. I just stopped pretending it wasn't happening. They left shortly after. Derek paused at the door. For a moment, I thought he might apologize. Instead, he said, "You always had it easier." I stared at him, incredulous. "I lived in a rented box and worked myself into the ground," I said. "If that's easy, I don't want hard." He scoffed and walked out. That evening, Mateo came over. The moment he saw me, he pulled me into his arms. I broke against his chest like I'd been holding myself together with duct tape. "I hate that they did this to you," he murmured. "I hate that part of me still wants them to say sorry and mean it," I admitted. He kissed my forehead. "That doesn't make you weak," he said. "It makes you human." As we sat on the couch, my phone buzzed again. An unfamiliar name flashed on the screen. Sabrina Cole. I frowned. Mateo stiffened beside me. "That's my ex," he said slowly. "She's a real estate agent." My heart sank. Before I could ask anything, the voicemail notification appeared. Mateo played it on speaker. Her voice was professional, too professional. "Mateo, this is Sabrina. I'm calling regarding a property owned by Steven Torres. He's asking for a rushed sale. Something about a 30-day deadline. I thought you should know." I closed my eyes. Of course. Even now, even after everything. My father was trying to maneuver his way out. And suddenly I understood something chilling. The people who stole from me didn't just lose their morality. They never had it. And in the next 30 days, they were going to prove it. The house went on the market 3 days later. I didn't hear about it from my parents. I didn't hear it from Derek. I heard it from Sabrina. She called Mateo again, this time more hesitant, like she didn't want to be involved but couldn't ignore what she was seeing. "He's desperate," she said over speakerphone. "He keeps saying it has to close fast. No negotiations. He's willing to take less than market value." I sat at Grandma's dining table, staring at the wood grain beneath my fingers. The same table where, just a week earlier, my mother had smiled and lied to my face. "How much less?" I asked quietly. There was a pause. "Enough to hurt," Sabrina replied. I hung up and felt something strange settle inside me. Not satisfaction, not revenge. Acceptance. Because I finally understood, consequences don't arrive loudly. They arrive methodically. The house they were selling wasn't just any property. It was the house. The 2-story place in San Francisco where I'd learned to ride a bike, where my dad once carried me inside when I fell and scraped my knees bloody, where my mom taught me how to bake cookies and told me secrets about being an adult woman. The house where I thought I was safe. Now it was just an asset, a means to an end, a sacrifice on the altar of their own greed. Grandma never commented on the sale, not once. But I noticed she stopped driving past that neighborhood. The sale moved fast, too fast. They accepted an offer nearly 15% below market value just to meet the 30-day deadline. No time to negotiate, no leverage, no dignity. Attorney Laura handled everything with clinical efficiency. When the repayment finally came through, $350,000 plus $35,000 in interest, the confirmation email sat unread in my inbox for almost an hour. Mateo watched me from across the room. "You're allowed to look," he said gently. "I know," I replied. "I just didn't think it would feel like this." When I finally opened it, there was no rush of relief, no sense of victory, just a hollow quiet. The money was proof, but it wasn't closure. A week later, I drove past the house alone. The windows were dark, the front lawn was bare, the familiar wind chimes were gone. I parked across the street and sat there longer than I meant to. I thought I'd cry. I didn't. What surprised me most was how little it hurt, because that house had stopped being home long before the for sale sign went up. It stopped being home the moment my parents decided my future was currency. That night, Grandma finally spoke about it. "I'm selling the rest of the farm," she said calmly over dinner. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. "Grandma, are you sure?" She nodded. "I'm tired, Eliana. I don't want to manage land anymore, and I don't want anything left that can be fought over." Her voice softened. "I want things simple." The farm had been in our family for generations. It was where Grandma grew up, where my grandfather proposed, where she buried him. Letting it go was not just financial. It was emotional amputation. But she was right. Sometimes simplicity is survival. The sale closed 2 months later. $2.4 million. Half went to Uncle Mike's family. Half went to me. When attorney Laura confirmed the final transfer, my hands shook. I had never seen numbers like that attached to my name. Not because I'd chased money, but because I'd survived betrayal. With that money, I did exactly what I'd always planned, long before inheritance, before stolen funds, before family collapse. I built something real. I leased a 5,000-square-foot warehouse in the Southern Industrial District of San Francisco, bought equipment, hired skilled carpenters, paid them well, I didn't rush. I didn't gamble. I respected the money because I knew its cost. Every table we built, every bookshelf we shipped, every order we fulfilled. It wasn't just business. It was proof. A year passed. My parents moved to Oregon, renting now. Smaller place, smaller lives. My father, nearly 60, took whatever job he could find. My mother worked part-time at a grocery store. Derek followed them. His sure-thing investments were gone. So was his arrogance. One afternoon, they reached out, all three of them. A message, carefully worded, apologetic, familiar. We're still family. I read it once, then deleted it. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. Because some doors don't need to be slammed. They just need to stay closed. Grandma is 81 now. I bought a small house a minute from hers, not for convenience. For care. We have dinner together twice a week. She tells me stories. I tell her about the business. We argue about recipes. Our family gatherings are small now, but they're honest. No performances, no lies, no thieves hiding behind love. Sometimes losing people isn't tragedy. Sometimes it's the beginning of peace. 1 year after everything fell apart, my life looked nothing like the one I used to wake up to in Seattle. No more beige walls, no more counting hours instead of dreams. The warehouse buzzed every morning, machines humming, sawdust floating in golden lines of light, my team laughing over coffee before work began. Orders from boutique hotels and high-end restaurants kept coming in. We expanded twice. I hired more people. I learned how to lead without becoming cold. Sometimes I'd stand in the doorway and think, this was built from truth, not shortcuts. That mattered to me more than the money. Mateo moved in that spring. Quietly, naturally, like something that didn't need to be announced to feel real. He never asked for control, never tried to fix me, never told me how I should feel about my family. He just stayed, and that was enough. The last attempt from my parents came on a Sunday afternoon, a handwritten letter. That alone told me how desperate they were. I stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. Grandma sat across from me, shelling peas, pretending not to watch my hands tremble. Inside were apologies, long, emotional, carefully crafted. We were wrong, we lost our way, we're still your parents. Derek had added a separate note, shorter, colder. We didn't mean for it to end like this. That sentence stuck with me. Not we're sorry. Just this wasn't the plan. I folded the letters back into the envelope. Grandma looked up. What will you do? I met her eyes. I'm going to let them live with the consequences they chose. She nodded once. No pride, no sadness. Just understanding. A week later, I ran into Sabrina in person for the first and last time. It was at a cafe near the warehouse. She recognized me immediately. Eliana, she said cautiously, I didn't expect to see you. You helped without meaning to, I replied honestly. Thank you. She sighed. Your father tried to hide things, even at the end. I walked away from the deal once I saw how dirty it was. That didn't surprise me. What surprised me was how little it mattered now. Because even when exposed, they hadn't changed. They'd just failed. And failure isn't the same as remorse. That night, Mateo asked me something I'd been avoiding. Do you think you'll regret cutting them off? I thought about it for a long time. Then I answered truthfully. I don't regret protecting myself. I regret that they made it necessary. He squeezed my hand. And for the first time, I felt no guilt about choosing peace over blood. Grandma's health remained strong. Sharp mind. Clear eyes. She still wears the scarf sometimes. Every time she does, I remember the girl who brought it with nothing but love in her heart, and the woman who walked out with the truth instead. Our family is small now. Me, Grandma, Uncle Mike's family, Mateo. But it's real. And real love doesn't steal. It doesn't manipulate. It doesn't ask you to stay silent to keep the peace. It tells the truth, even when it costs everything. Some people say my grandmother was too harsh. Some say family should always forgive. Maybe. All I know is this. She taught me that values matter more than blood, that honesty is worth protecting, and that sometimes losing the people who hurt you is the only way to finally find yourself. That's where my story ends.